everyone. Hello and welcome into our game preview video for week 2 featuring the Minnesota Vikings and the Arizona Cardinals slated to happen tomorrow. Before we get into that game preview with the stats and the rankings, quick shout out to the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who is today's featured hat, for their win over the Colorado Buffaloes today in Boulder. They improved to 2-1 on the season, with their only loss being to Ohio State, and the run game for Minnesota looks like it is alive and well. So shout out to them. They get Bowling Green next week, and then they get into conference play. The schedule looks favorable for these guys going in. I hope they can keep this momentum and just, rack up the wins by the time we get to Iowa, and then maybe we can make a statement in Iowa, bring home the trophy this year. So anyway, I'm talking about the rivalry trophy, not the national championship, or maybe not even the Big Ten, but I think they're definitely a contender in the Big Ten West. I think after what we've seen from Wisconsin, I'm going off on a rant here, but it's exciting to think about what could be ahead for the Golden Gophers, given their schedule leading up to Iowa. So I'm going to leave it at there. Let's talk about the NFL. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Before we get into the stats and the rankings for this game, and we'll finish off with 3 keys to the game, I just got to say, I think most of us feel like that this is a must-win, and it's weird to feel like that for week 2 because the schedule doesn't do us any favors going forward from here, and we've talked about this ad nauseum for most of the week now. There's been a lot of predictions from myself and you, the viewers, about where this team could be record-wise once the bye week hits, because we have a tough slate of games following the loss to Cincinnati. Everybody kind of assumed that, the Cincinnati Bengals wouldn't be as competitive as they showed themselves to be on Sunday, and that we would walk out of Cincinnati with an 0-1 start, and that is not the case. We have dug ourselves in a very early hole that could get very deep very quickly. So we start this week with the Arizona Cardinals. Following that, on deck, we have the Seattle Seahawks, Cleveland Browns. Kevin Stefanski revenge game looms close. We will play a game against Detroit to close out the 3-game homestand, and then we go on the road to face the Carolina Panthers, who are no small potatoes themselves. This run defense against Christian McCaffrey, kind of scary. So let's hope that they get their stuff together by the time that happens. So we could potentially be looking at, I think, best case scenario, a 3-3 record heading into the bye week if they play anything like they did last week in Cincinnati. Of course, the penalties are going to be cleaned up. Some of the defensive matchups should be better schemed, and I think the offense should be running on all cylinders. The offensive line could be the problem for this matchup as we head into Arizona, as we are going to figure out here throughout the course of this video. So without further ado, let's get into the rankings for the offense and defenses for this team. I decided not to pull out the whiteboard today. That was a little bit too much of a hassle, and I kind of don't like how it looks for this particular video. So we're going to go with on-screen graphics because those are a little cleaner. So I hope you prefer this way and don't miss the whiteboard too much, but it will return next Wednesday if that is your thing for week 3 NFL Pick'ems. That video comes out on Wednesday. So let's get into this, starting with the Cardinals offense. They rank 11th in total offense right now, 13th in passing, 9th in rushing. Kyler Murray had himself a fantastic game last week, racking up points for the Cardinals offense. Switching over to the Vikings offense, they currently rank 13th in the NFL in total offense, 4th in passing, but 28th in rushing. They only had 67 yards on the ground last week, with 61 of those coming from Dalvin Cook. If you remember, most of the time that they were playing from behind, Kirk Cousins had to air it out to his receivers. That is why we are currently ranked 4th in passing, because Kirk Cousins had the 4th most passing total yards among quarterbacks exiting week 1. I believe Derek Carr finished with the first after that crazy Monday night game. So these numbers are obviously going to change. These rankings will not stay as they are because, teams are going to slowly figure themselves out, or they're going to collapse into dust. So I don't think that this is indicative of what these teams' identities are quite yet, but it gives us an idea of what we could potentially see happen on Sunday. If you're wondering where I'm getting the stats, just a quick aside, footballdatabase.com, they make them very easy to access, and you can look at all of the statistics for every team in the league. So that is where I'm getting my numbers. If you disagree or have something different, just a heads up. Switching over to the defensive side of the ball, starting with the Cardinals defense, they currently rank 2nd in total defense, only surrendering 248 yards last week to the Titans. They are 4th against the pass, surrendering only 162 yards. They have shut down those vaunted wide receivers for the Tennessee Titans, A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. 13th against the run. Switching over to the Vikings defense, they currently rank 12th in total defense, 11th against the pass, 27th against the run after getting gashed last week by the Bengals for a total of 149 yards on the ground. I believe Joe Mixon had the most of those, getting the bulk of 127 yards himself, being a true bell cow. Last week, the Arizona Cardinals posted a victory, 38-13 over the Titans. For the Vikings, it has been well documented that they lost in overtime, 27-24 to the Bengals. So those are your rankings and statistics for the offenses and defenses for both of these teams. It doesn't match up too well, and the matchups that we have don't really favor the Vikings too well, and that is going to be our three keys to the game. Number one key to the game is the Vikings offense on third down. A statistic that popped out to me, having done research for this video, was that the Cardinals only allowed a conversion rate of 35% last week to the Titans offense on third down. The Titans were able to convert 5 out of 13 third down attempts. That is pretty atrocious. The Minnesota Vikings offense last week against the Bengals defense only converted 37% of their third down attempts, 6 for 16. So when it comes to third down, and the Vikings seem to more often than not put themselves in a situation where they like to be third and super long. Because, a play gets blown up, a run goes for nowhere, they get a sack because of Garrett Bradbury not being able to have an anchor and providing poor pass protection, and pressure immediately comes into the pocket. However, we end up at 3rd and 15 or 3rd and 20, whatever it may be, those are obvious passing down situations that are not going to be successful very often. And that's what the Vikings found themselves in a lot last week. If we can get into 3rd and manageable, I think we'll see that number go up, but it's going to be difficult because this defense for the Cardinals so far has been really good. Second key to the game is going to be pass protection against Chandler Jones specifically. Last week, Chandler Jones had 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, I believe. The guy is elite. He is the most unknown elite pass rusher in the NFL. I think outside of the hardcore NFL fan base, most people aren't going to be able to recall, or recognize Chandler Jones, and I don't know why that is. And I've been saying it for years that he is an elite, whatever the opposite of a household name pass rusher is. And I think Danielle Hunter almost fits in that category as well, because I think outside of the hardcore NFL fan base, most people aren't going to recognize, at least not instantly by name, guys like Danielle Hunter and Chandler Jones. So he is obviously going to be a problem going up against Rashad Hill. And we found out last week that Rashad Hill is not that guy. He could barely handle Trey Hendrickson on his assignment. So it'll be interesting to see how the pass rush for the Cardinals jettisons up the middle, where we are obviously at our weakest. J.J. Watt could wreak havoc against Garrett Bradbury and his guards for the duration of this game. So it's going to be a lot of problems. They'll probably have to bring in Dalvin Cook and Madison and C.J. Ham to provide extra blocking and protection, just so receivers have some time to get open. So that is the second key to the game. Third key to the game is containing Kyler Murray, and you'll notice that I chose my words carefully here. I didn't say that they need to stop Kyler Murray, because I agree with Mike Zimmer and what he said about being able to contain him in the pocket for the entirety of the game. That is just not possible. That is something you hope to achieve, and maybe you pull off a miracle, but it is unrealistic. It is unrealistic to believe that you can stop Kyler Murray from doing what he does best, and that is just making plays off schedule and basically being Houdini on the field, if I could put it that way. So is it possible to stop Kyler Murray? I don't think so. I think he's going to get his. Is it possible to contain him and make his life miserable? Yeah. Do the Vikings have the formula and personnel to be able to do it? It depends. I think if the right players show up for this game, that they'll definitely be able to make a more improved defensive stand. But, they did give up some very gutsy plays last week to Joe Burrow, so anything is possible. Final thoughts on the game. It looks like Eric Kendricks is going to escape the injury report. He was listed as questionable. It's a 50-50 shot for him to play this week. If he doesn't, I think it's going to be bad news. It looks like Nick Vigil is going to be playing. He was not on the final injury report, I believe. The only players ruled out for the Vikings are 4 total. It is Christian Darrisaw, which is obvious. Anthony Barr, who is going to miss his 16th straight game with this team. I don't know how you guys are feeling on that, because it feels like the only thing of significance that Anthony Barr has ever contributed to this football team is the Aaron Rodgers tackle and the subsequent rule that came from that, where you cannot put your entire body weight on the quarterback when you hit them anymore. So, because we're seeing that week after week with sacks being, penalized as personal fouls for that specific incident. And we're also going to be without Harrison Hand, which is going to test the cornerback depth a little bit, and I think that will force the Vikings to actually have Cam Dantzler active for this game. Last week he was a healthy scratch because he doesn't play special teams. And Mike Zimmer said that in order for Cam Dantzler to see the field, he's going to need to participate in that area of the game. So we'll see how that goes. Final prediction for this game. You know, I was optimistic earlier this week. I've been optimistic. I'm going to stick with that optimism because the opposite of that is an 0-2 start where we start talking about, you know, how do we dig out of a hole that teams historically can't do, right? It becomes incredibly difficult to make the playoffs. I think you can just stop talking about a Super Bowl appearance once you start 0-2. Historically, it's just the odds are not in your favor. So, you know, Vegas already believes that Mike Zimmer's seat is incredibly hot. So we could see how that goes. So I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to predict that we steal a game in Arizona. I'm going to predict that this is a trap game for the Cardinals. We are the spoilers of good news. That is going to be our role this week. Somehow we'll pull it off. I don't know how it's going to be. Am I insane for predicting a Vikings win? Yes, absolutely. This is nuts. Don't do this. Don't follow my lead, but that's where I'm going to leave it. So let me know what you think about this game. Coming up tomorrow, I will see you for a post-game video. It's going to be a short one tomorrow because I'm going to be out of town doing stuff. So it'll probably be somewhere from a remote location. But look for that because I definitely want to get your comments so that we can do the day after Arizona on Monday. So look out for that video tomorrow, immediately following the game, which will not start until 4:25 tomorrow because we're playing in Arizona. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.